Yeah, Sherry, thank you very much. And thank you all for taking the time today to meet with us about the new Q Interactive app. My name is, as Sherry mentioned, is Dan Zweers. I'm a senior assessment representative that's worked with Pearson or a Pearson acquired company for over 20 years. Q Interactive has actually really been a bright spot of my time within this position because it was really exciting to get and involve technology into the assessment process. So I'm really excited about this app coming out, this new version, and I hope you are as well. Before I get too far into my presentation, I do want to mention that at points in time, there will be items from our assessments displayed. These are copyrighted materials. Please do not share them with any unauthorized users, and they're not for any other distribution, just to get this message out of the way. So what I am going to cover in the next, 45 minutes to an hour is I'm going to speak briefly about the history and introduction of Q Interactive. We may have some people on this session that aren't familiar with Q Interactive, so I'm just going to take a couple minutes to just give a brief introduction and history to Q Interactive. Then we're going to really focus on the improvements within the new assessment app. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a number of slides illustrating the new apps and some comparisons between the new and the old app. And then I'm going to have a little bit of a pre-recorded video that's going to actually show a live session of the app. So we'll get a chance to kind of see it in real time. And I'm going to cover a lot of the things that are shown within the slides that I'm going to share as well. So you can see a live version of that. And then I'm going to cover just kind of the ready, set, migrate, just our suggestions on how to proceed to transition from the current app to the new app. We'll just take some moments there, and also just what's going to be included in the new app as well will be highlighted at that point in time. So really a quick agenda here, just to get this information out to you. And like I said, I want to start with a brief history of Q Interactive. I could not believe it when I heard that the app was 10 years old this year. I was around, of course, during the start of this. I can remember, I guess over a decade ago and decades ago, when we were all working with paper pencil, the addition of just computer disk scoring was just getting to be commonplace. And then we had the introduction of our scoring system like Q Global. But then real excitement started to come out when we introduced a way to utilize technology in the iPads to administer assessments. And I can't believe it's already been 10 years since then. If you are one of the people that are not currently using Q Interactive, it is a one-to-one iPad-based testing system. And right now we have 20 different clinical assessments, which include, of course, some of the major tools out there. This system is really good for that one-on-one structure because you're able to administer the assessment using a practitioner iPad. You're running the show with that iPad, and you're entering in data, so you're able to generate a report when you are finished with that administration. And this is just a quick overview of how it does work. Again, you're going into a laptop, you're entering data, you're syncing it to your iPads for assessments. And just to highlight, this is actually the point in time that we're going to be talking about here within this presentation. What the new app does not change the first step in the process. It does not change your username and password going into qiactive.com and entering in, or what we refer to as Q Central, to create your assessment. What this new app actually pertains to is the iPad-based administration of the assessment. So your first step and your last step are going to remain exactly the same. So you create the assessment in Q Central, you send it to the iPads for administration. And of course, at that time, you can administer it even without an actual Wi-Fi connection as well. And then you send it back for reporting. And then you generate your reports through Q Central again on any browser-based device or a laptop. So I just wanted to take that quick overview of how Q Interactive works and exactly specify which stage this new app is going to affect. Now, some of the interesting information about Q Interactive and where we've gotten in the last 10 years is just really kind of amazing. We have over 100,000 professionals using Q Interactive right now, which is just amazing. Over 1 million subtests are administered each month within the app. And the districts that use Q Interactive serve over 14 million students. I mean, I wanted to share these numbers because I really wanted to just illustrate, how involved this app affects assessment in education today. And of course, with this, we always want to make certain that we are always improving and keeping things up to date, gathering your feedback and using that feedback to provide the best experience for you. So something that was good, something that you liked is hopefully getting better. What we feel you will see is we will see that improved workflow and user experience based on those feedback that we have received from you over that last decade. It will look new. It's when I look at the app and when I have had a beta on my devices, I think it looks a lot cleaner. I think there's a lot more white space within the app. And I also think it's easier to get around. You'll hopefully notice that when I start to show you some slides and I run the presentation. Performance and reliability improvements, including the improved connectivity between the iPad devices. That's probably the #1 phone call I receive from people, mainly when they're getting into the system. So we focused on improving that as well. Now, when we decided to make the new app, we really wanted to focus and we wanted to listen to what you had to say or you had for your suggestions. So we used a multi-phased, multi-source process for directing our updates for the new Assess app. Primarily, we have 10 years of surveys and just general feedback that we've collected on what customers like you didn't like and about the current app. And we were able to use that as our starting point. Then we were able to test out initial changes and technology advances via beta testing with customers and internally conducting live administrations. And for beta testing, we sent iPads to customers that had used Q Interactive before and asked them to share both written feedback and they participated in individual structured interviews as well. Overall, we're happy to say that the feedback has been very positive and the team was asked about their experiences going through this process. And one thing that stood out was just how far practitioners have come recognizing the positive impact technology can have on their assessments. For those on the team that had about 10 years of experience from the original development, there were certain automations that were nixed because practitioners did not want to let go of their involvement with that. And so we really listened to what people were saying to us. And for internal testing, we had users with varying degrees of familiarity with Q Interactive engage in live administrations. Using that new application while the Q Interactive team observed through a two-way mirror. We analyzed their ability to navigate the application and successfully administer the assessments. And afterwards, they were interviewed about the pain points and things. So we really took a lot of information together to try and and make this app really based on comments and feedback that we received from people. And then an interesting thing that I think is actually really interesting is that we also had a unique opportunity arise because the DCEFS was coming up for revision. And this is the first product to be designed for the new Assess application. So as the new version of the DCEFS is going through field research, we were able to interview the examiners after the tryout phase of data collection. So really getting that initial information from those field examiners on a new assessment. And just so you know, the DCEFS is scheduled to be released in 2024. And we got a lot of good data. And finally, our Q Interactive team has been demoing this app at national conferences. So some of you may have already been able to see the new app at ASHA or at NASP here recently. So maybe you've had a chance to take a look at it, but we've just really taken a painstaking look and really took customer feedback to develop this new app. So the technology comparison really was important for us to do. The technology advances between the legacy and the new Assess app are really impressive and honestly way above what I understand. But ultimately, we're told that it comes down to the foundation of which these apps are coded. The legacy app required old technology, which had to be heavily customized, and some features just built from the ground up were just iOS specific. Whereas the new Assess app is built on a foundation which can draw upon modern technologies and widgets created by others and integrated. Because of this foundational difference, the legacy app requires a great deal of maintenance and improvements are slower to build and much more limited. So we're really excited about where we can go with this going forward. So now I'm just going to show you some of the new features and kind of show you that side-by-side comparison of the old and the new. So this is a look at that new dashboard. As you can see, it's a little bit cleaner. It's not as cluttered. You're just seeing the student data on the left-hand side. It's really more focused on the assessment and what status that assessment is. Now there's a search bar at the top so that if you have multiple assessments on your device that run off the screen, you can search for those assessments on your iPad. You have sorting capabilities, as you can see on the drop-down with the test date. There's flags within the system for items that need reviewed, and there's also a nice pre-test system health check so that you know that you're ready to begin your assessment. And in my video, I'll show you where that's located. This is just kind of a comparison of the two things. I always found that the left-hand side of the screen was a little bit difficult to manage unless you were really familiar with the app. So I think that, as you can see, it's just a much cleaner look. And then the update detailed page. So once you select your student, this is what the new student page looks like. You'll see all the information you need, including the assessment duration, right on that screen. Before, you had to select the assessment, you had to go into the edit button, and that just brought up your test for editing. And now it's all found on one screen. And this is a comparison of how those looked. And this is, of course, the edit battery, but now all that information again on the right-hand side, you can see the new Assess app has that examinee information there as well. And also I want to point out at the top right side, you can see we have the button for editing. We also have a to-do button there as well, which I think is a very valuable feature. So it's going to be easier to get at those to-dos instead of having to go all the way back into the subtest to get to your to-dos. And then, of course, now instead of a play button on the icon of a subtest, the resume button there is just right on the upper right-hand corner, a little bit easier to find. Improved notes section. One thing when I speak with people that are using Q Interactive, a lot of them didn't really use the note function, and I think that this will actually potentially be a much better option than before. In the past, you needed to select notes and it would take you to a whole different screen. And now the note feature actually shows up on the screen, and the opacity of the note is there, so you can actually still see the item during the administration, and you aren't kind of moving from one entire screen to another entire screen and then trying to come back. It's just a little bit easier for the note-taking process during the administration. This is what it looked like before. As you can see, this is an entire screen. You can't see the item that you were on at that point in time. And now you can change that opacity of that note. In the upper right-hand corner, you see a little slide bar. So you can make it darker or lighter, depending on how much you want to see on the other page. The results page. So, of course, one of the best features of Q Interactive is that you can see results really right away when you've completed a subtest. So we have a result page that I think is a lot cleaner. You can expand the subtests and composites to view more information. And there's new visual representation of subtest scaled and composite scores in the results page. Excuse me. And here's just another comparison of the two. As you can see, a lot more white space is found on the right-hand side. It's a little bit larger because we don't have the bar on the left-hand side kind of cramming things together. So this is just kind of this is a comparison of what those results pages would look like at the subtest level. And here's another little comparison of what it's going to look like here on the composite score and scaled score level. And of course, there's a lot of new messaging, and you'll see this in some of the in some of the snippets from the video, but there's new messaging in there as well to kind of identify, okay, this is what the issue is here, to try to help resolve potential issues as well. Another nice thing that I think is just another little time savings, and people will like, but now when we're trying to score for a don't know or a no response, it'll actually populate the score with a 0 instead of you having to remember that, okay, the student replied with a don't know or a no response, and then having to remember to go back and still click it as a 0. So some improvements just within the assessment process designed really to speed it up even a little bit more than what you probably have already seen. And then also a little bit better way to present information on how the practitioner is supposed to respond during the administration of the assessment is embedded in the system, where if they have a correct response, like on trial items or things like that, the verbiage that you're supposed to utilize is going to show up at the bottom of the screen based on that response being correct. Or if it's an incorrect response, that will show up at the bottom of the screen, so that you're no longer going back to the left-hand side of the page trying to figure out exactly what you're supposed to say then and there. It's just presented in a much easier way for people to utilize the system. So some additional features and improvement, updated error messaging. We kind of mentioned that a little bit. Double tapping to copy, mainly in block design. You can illustrate the block design now by just tapping on the target response, and that will show up in the respondent's response automatically instead of having to go through and do all the blocks and taking up that time. There's a new timer found in the upper right-hand corner that I think is a little bit easier to navigate than the previous one. There's also a reset button and things on there as well. So it's just much easier to start that over if you need to during the administration. On some of the subtests like picture span, again, there's a little reset button that's found up in the upper right-hand corner of that. And if the student just went on there and started tapping things right away, because we know they like to play, there's a way to just easily reset everything so that you can start that assessment of that item instead of having to take the time to deselect every single thing that they tapped on that page. And of course, you can see already that we really wanted to fit everything onto one page instead of having one page focus on some of the prompts and then moving on to the item for scoring. It's all going to be available more on one page just to make the experience a little bit easier and help people go through the system. Here's an example of the oral fluency subtest on the WIAT, and this, again, all of these are going to be shown here in the video as well. But as you can see, it's just some redesign. And nice thing about the notes section on this is this note can be moved around the screen. So if you're a left-handed person, you can actually move this to the left hand of the screen, making it easier for you to write instead of reaching across the iPad to write the responses. Just little things like that are built into the system to try to make the experience a little bit better. And then for things like coding and stuff like that, where you're going to be entering in just some numbers, a new keypad entry is there. And then also bulk assessment removal is now available. So you can keep your Assess app cleaner, a little bit easier. And I'll show you some of that within the recording as well. So this is my recording, and I'm going to start to play it. It's a little bit over, I think it's like 15 to 20 minutes long. Hopefully it gives you a good example of what a live look of the app will be. Okay, so now that we're in the new app, we'll just kind of start by doing a quick little overview of the dashboard that you come into. As you can see, it looks a little bit different, but most of the same, or I should say all the same stuff can be located on this, but it's a little bit cleaner look, cleaner feel. The student data now is just highlighted and the assessments that you have coming in. So first, I'll just kind of start in the upper left-hand corner. The little icon there now is just, that's how you sign out. Of course, we're not going to do that, but that's how you sign out of the system now. In the upper right-hand corner, the two arrows touching each other, that's how you go into sync and look for any new assessments that you have available, or to send your assessments back for reporting when you're completed. In the bottom right, the button, that's where you now find the button where you can determine your system health, make sure you're up to date. Also, this is where a new feature is you can remove multiple assessments. So I'm going to select 2 assessments that I've completed. I'm going to remove those assessments. And now you can do that multiple, other than doing them one at a time. And it's just will take a little bit to be removed off the system. So that's a nice feature to help you keep your dashboard clean. And then also the client device information. This is, of course, is reminding me, hey, guess what? We need to sign into my other device. So I'm going to do that quickly. And now my client device is connected to the internet, as you saw the drop down. Excuse me. And then the last thing now is, if you do, run off the screen, you can search for a student or for an assessment using the search bar. So I'm going to select the top assessment, my demo student assessment. And this is now the assessment dashboard. You can see the student's name. You can adjust data as well. You can just gender information, their date of birth information, and then also their grade. So all of that is still available, just easy to get access to. I also want to point out, though, in the upper right-hand side there, now you have your battery right away. You can just hit edit. You also have a to-do right on this screen now. So instead of having to go into the assessment to access the to-dos that you might have to do for an assessment to complete it, it's now found, access to those can be found just on this main screen. And then of course, there's a start button instead of having to hit the play button that we had used before. So I am going to start this assessment. And we're going to go right into block design. Pretty much a very similar look. We do see the student's name now on this title page. And when I swipe we still have pop-ups for start points, discontinues, reverse rules. A nice feature though now is that the instructions are going to pop up. One of the goals of this revision was to get all the information on one page during administration. So your prompts and everything are on the same page as the item that you are assessing. So I'm going to hit OK. As you can see, my directions are found on the left-hand side of the page. I'm going to hit Show Picture, and standard. The administration really is pretty standard compared to what we did in the past. But to just kind of go over this page now, I'm going to go into the upper left-hand corner. This is just your instructions, basic instructions on this specific to this subtest. In the upper right-hand corner, you're still seeing the scoring area. So your corrects, incorrects, 1s, 2s, 4s are going to show up in that box there that has a dash. We still have the flagged items, so you can flag an item if you want to come back to it later. You see a new stopwatch, and we'll probably play around with that a little bit more a little bit later. And then in the bottom right-hand corner now, instead of the icons being located across the top of the screen, they're now found in this expandable button. So again, we already know about the health, we know about the connection. Our note tab now is located in this area. And as you can see, instead of going to an entirely separate area of a separate screen to write notes, now there's actually a screen that pops up. You can adjust the opacity so you can look at the items while you're writing your notes. But this now is just a feature so that isn't as distracting or doesn't move you away from the item during the administration of your assessment. Third button, or the fourth button there, is the discontinue button. The fifth button is the information button, how to hold the device or how to present the device to the student. Basic information for that assessment. We do still have a to-do tab. So the to-do tab now, instead of being that little notebook tab, or at least that's what I called it in the upper left-hand corner, it's now found in this expandable button in the lower right-hand corner. And then the home button, instead of having just the Q in the upper left-hand corner, now the home button is found in the bottom of the screen. So some cool things about block design. Of course, when you download the new app, we suggest that you go in and investigate, practice, familiarize yourselves with the new app. You'll notice a lot of the things are still the same, but there are, of course, little special things for a lot of subtests, like the block design subtest. Now, when you come across a target, if the student answers it correctly, you can just tap the target answer on the screen, and it'll auto-populate down into their response. You can make adjustments as well as you see appropriate, but at any time you can just tap that target to present that the student got the answer correct. You'd still have to score it, and then swipe to the next page. Show picture. I'm going to tap the target. Everything looks good. We still have the ability to do a little bit of a dimension. I'm going to declare that that's still acceptable. Give them 4 points, move on to the next item. Now I'm going to action on this item. I'm going to forget to score and move on to cause that to do. And that'll come into our conversation later. But then I'm going to score a good. I'm going to discontinue out of this subtest. The discontinue has been activated. It pops up. I determine I want to discontinue. Of course, we're not able to score because I skipped the scoring on that one item. And now you see that you can go in to the to-do. It'll bring you right to that item. And I'm just going to say done. I'm not going to finish that yet because we'll come back to that later. Swipe and move on to the next subtest. So the next one that I have in the assessment is coding. What I really want to do on this one is swipe. You have your information for the administration of the directions for administering this assessment. In this, we just have a couple of interesting, neat little things. So you present the item, you hit correct, you get a response and how you should react when a student, answers the item correctly. There's a different response that'll pop up if incorrect. So this is all about space savings, ease of use, really presenting the data to help with the flow of the administration. So we're just going to sit with correct. And then also on this one, I just wanted to show you that there's a new notepad for entering the number that they received correct during the administration. And how easy it is to administer and score. Okay, so there's no to-dos to do in this subtest. So we're just going to swipe on to the next one. So the next subtest is picture span. What I'm going to do is swipe into the assessment, have the little pop-up start point information. My directions are on the right-hand side. I decide when I want to show the picture, go through the prompts, and then I hit the play button to start the assessment for that item. I'm going to select the correct items on this one on the student's iPad, and as you can see at the bottom, we got a correct response, and then say that's right, good job. But I'm going to hit this little orange or pink button in the upper right-hand corner. It's actually a refresh button. And this time, I'm going to show the picture. I'm going to hit the button for the items. And I'll do it incorrectly this time. And of course, an incorrect response comes up, says that's not correct. Let's try again. Just again, the system helping you administer the assessment in the appropriate way. So we're going to do it again for this trial item to get through the trial items. Okay. And now we're going to start on item 4. I'm going to show this picture. And one thing that I'm going to show you now is another new feature for the system. Let's say the student provided you with a don't know answer. If you hit the don't know, that now automatically populates in the score. For a no response would do that as well. And you can of course unselect them if you hit those by mistake. You can refresh the item if you need to go back to it. But now those nice little buttons in the upper right hand corner, those will actually present a score sometimes in the for you, so you don't have to remember to also identify a score for them. I'm going to get this one correct and the next one correct, just so we can continue to move. Let's see if I hit hopefully I hit the basal. I did. I'm going to hit the discontinue rule, and we're going to be finished with that subtest. The next subtest I'm going to show is oral expression. very, similar, showing the picture, selecting an item. I got to give them 1 point. The ability to write an answer at the bottom of the page. All pretty similar to before. This is another one where in the upper right hand corner, if I get a response of don't know, as you can see, it's going to score for me. If I do it the don't know. And then of course I can deselect that if we get the correct answer. Just another way to illustrate those. Again, these note sections, we can change the opacity so you can, if there is information, additional information on the screen that you want to see, you can adjust that. And I'm going to actually forget to score this item and move on. Score 1 on this one, and then I'll discontinue past this subtest. And go into the oral expression. Now, a neat little thing about oral expression, of course, you have the prompts on the same page. When you start the clock, that disappears on the right side, so I can write dog, cat, fish, and you can write the answers. But the cool thing about this subtest and this writing box now is that this is one that you can actually move on the screen. So if you're left-handed and would prefer that to be on a particular side of the screen, you can move it around because it is kind of a small area to write. Let's see here, cow, horse, chicken, just to get these additional answers in as we have a whole minute to go through the subtest. And then when we hit 60 seconds, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually stop the timer. And as I mentioned before, the timers have a little bit different presentation in the new app. So when you stop, there's a little gear button for settings of the timer. So I can go in and I can make adjustments. I can adjust the time, that I had that assessment. I can refresh the clock if we needed to go through and do things again. I'm going to start it up. I'm going to pause. I'm going to get us past 60 really quick so we can move on from this item. As you can see, you can adjust that clock really easily within the system. And then I'm going to go through and give the credits. And move on to the next area of oral fluency. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to discontinue out of this subtest and move on. I'm sorry, I'm going to do the same thing here for oral expression. As you can see, there's a to do within the subtest. And I think that there's one more. Yep, I wanted to just do quickly word definitions. Illustrate, as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, there's still the little red dot to show that this is being recorded. Again, we have the correct responses are given some feedback on how to proceed. Incorrect responses, you're being told how to proceed. We have a don't know, no response, query and repetition buttons up there. But anyway, so as you can see, a lot of these are standard throughout the administration of within the new app. So I'm going to discontinue. And I'm going to move back then, since we've ended the assessment. I'm going to go back, then I'm going to hit the home button to go back. And now, as you can see, and the thing that I really wanted to show now is that those to-dos are really easy to access now. As you can see in those 3 buttons up in the upper right-hand corner there, the to-do has those 2 to-dos that I need to find. So I'm going to hit that to-do. Luckily, I have the information there to know that, yes, they gave me the correct response. And then I can just hit next to move on to the next item. And on this item, luckily, it should have been recorded, so I can just access the recording. It's a little bit to the right of the page, but it's still there for you to go in and access. And after listening to that, I found out that they did answer that question correctly. And now we're done. All of those are there. So I'm going to just go back to the main screen. I'm going to hit the arrow buttons, and that's how we send it back for reporting. So there's a quick little overview of the new app. I hope you saw, some real cool features. We're really excited about it. It's much cleaner. We also think that there were additions made to save a little bit of time here and there as well. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a little bit of a firsthand view of what the new app is going to look like. Again, I'm pretty excited about it, seeing the improvements and the transition from the original app. Just to let everybody know, there will be some changes in the new app. The Bracken 4 was released late last year in paper format, but they will be available now on the standard license within Q Interactive, but they will be available only with the new app as well. So if you do have people that want to use the Bracken, they will need to get access to the new app, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit in our suggestions for around that. Also, the DCAFs, again, though, that's going to be coming in 2024, so we're really excited. And again, that's the first assessment that was created with the new features with this app in mind. So we're really excited about that. And then you will see a couple of tests will be removed from the system. CMS, CVLT2, pretty much the older assessments that aren't used really in any high frequency anymore. Those will be removed, which I think you understand why. So the next thing that I just want to cover quickly is the migration suggestions from us. There's a little bit of a 5-step process, kind of 4 steps with just a little bit of a go get 'em tiger type of response. But the first step that we really want to stress is we do suggest people go through the process, complete the administration of anything that you currently have on your current app, and then remove those cases off of the old app so that all the data associated with the app and device are saved from the device. This is very important because anything in process on the old app, when you remove the old app, that anything in process will be deleted. Anything that's been synced, anything that's been sent back for reporting, that's all saved within Q Central, so you don't have to worry about your data. But anything that hasn't gone to that completion stage, that would be deleted when you remove the app. So make sure that they go through and complete all of their current administrations. Then step 2 is delete the old app. If you have both apps on the system, it's going to be kind of confusing. So we do suggest that app be deleted from the system. The next step is to get the new app installed onto your system. The new app will actually start to be available in the App Store soon, but we do have some suggestions on times, and that's coming up in the next slide. But it's we do suggest not having both apps on the device at the same time. The 4th step is a little bit of training and practice. As you probably saw during the overview, there isn't really a lot being changed other than the presentation of the information, but it's locating and determining what some of the new features are, and just thinking about how you'd use that during an assessment administration. Yeah, there's some different steps there. So our suggestion is to put aside some time where you can do a little bit of training, practice, and familiarizing yourselves with the system. And that last step is enjoy. We're really excited about this app. We really think it will help save even a little bit more time. It's going to be a little bit better workflow. So really take some time and enjoy the new app. So our sample transition goes like this. I mean, we've been telling people about the new app now for the first part of the year. The new Assess app is scheduled to release actually just in a couple of weeks. It will be accessible through the Apple Store, but again, it might not be something that you want to download right away. It really depends on where your people or where everybody is in the process with their current apps on the current current Assess app. We are suggesting people look at the summer as a time to complete all of your current administrations, and probably look at June and July as a good time to remove that old app and install the new app. It just is a really nice break point where the majority of your assessments should be completed. You should be at a good stage to make that transition. So we are suggesting a June, July time period for the transition. And then, of course, as the professionals return to school, set an hour or so or two to allow people to get into the new app, get familiar with the new features within the system, the new layout of the app, during your, before your schools start meetings, or even maybe those first week or two where they might not have a lot of assessment referrals yet. And then just for a note, the old Assess app will no longer be supported by us at the end of December. So we do hope that everybody will make that transition over the summer. Tell your friends as well to make certain that they are looking at getting the new app downloaded onto their system, and have started to use the new app hopefully by this spring, this fall or early winter. So really, what if one of the big features of the new apps is that the addition of the Bracken basic concepts receptive, and also the Bracken school readiness are going to be on the new app. So really option one, and I think it's probably more appropriate for smaller districts, you can be a little bit, you have a little bit more individual access. Just follow that transition plan, but do it sooner. As long as you can complete those other assessments, you can, of course, transition. Again, that app will be available in the App Store in a couple of weeks. And then again, we want to stress, do some training, do some familiarizing yourself with the new app before you start administering. But if larger districts, it's going to be a little bit trickier, likely because your tech group probably pushes the apps onto your devices and things like that. So it might not be as clean cut. So we really do suggest looking at the summer. But if you do have a couple of people that really need to use the Bracken in the next couple months, hopefully there's a way that you can get them to complete their current assessments and get the new app installed onto their device so they can use the Bracken. And really, we've come to the end of what I wanted to cover and share regarding the new app for Q Interactive. There will be training webinars and new app and videos added to the website in the near future. We also have a lot of other offers to people, but please do write down or support the tech support number there as well. If you do run into some issues, they're a great resource to work with to get assistance. There's also a QR code there. Feel free to take a quick snapshot that will give you that links to our website to find out who your clinical assessment consultant is. I work with a number of states, but I think there's about 10 of us that work with the education agencies throughout the country. So please feel free to use us as a reference as well if you have some questions or need assistance, and that QR code will bring you right there. But I did want to take a time now and just kind of ask if there's any questions in the chat box that we need to get involved with.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, can you flip back to the slide that shows the assessments that will no longer be available on the new Assess app?
Yep.
So those are going to be assessments where there's already a newer version of, so CVLT 2 will no longer be available, GFTA 2 will no longer be available, PPVT 4, Wyatt 3, you can see the list on the screen there. So each of those outdated tests, with the exception of CMS, has a newer version already available on the app. So we just will not be migrating the old versions to the new Assess app. Let's see, and that's really the only open question that's left in the Q&A box. I will just add, as Dan mentioned, the new Assess app will be released here shortly. The scheduled release date for it is April 13th. It may or may not show up in the App Store right then, but it should be there and available by the 17th of April, so middle of the month. But again, unless you are within a smaller district or somebody that's just ready to start using the Bracken, don't feel rushed to try to switch in the middle of the year. You can finish out the school year in the legacy app, make the transition over the summer, and start the new year with the new Assess app. The one thing that we really want people to avoid is having the legacy app and the new app on the same device at the same time. Technically it will work, but where the confusion comes is when you set up a new case in Q Central, that case is going to be downloaded to the app that you log into first. So for example, if you meant to do something on the new Assess app, like with the Bracken, but you open the legacy app first, then that's where that case is going to appear. You won't have access to the Bracken, and it's just going to create problems for you. So there's plenty of time over the next few months to make the transition. So just as you have seen and will continue to see, we will be communicating quite frequently over the next few months. So just watch for those things. And if you have any questions, like Dan said, please reach out to your consultant or to Pearson in general, and we will be happy to assist you. Dan, I'm not seeing any other questions in the box. So at this point, I think we can probably close out.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much, and enjoy.